Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all. I'm gonna have to record this video again. I stumbled over so many words that it literally bothered me. So we're gonna start over again. Now we're going Project 2023. We're doing the promise number 3, which is to defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. That's what we're gonna be talking about in this particular one. So what I'm gonna do is the same thing I did through the last one. I'm gonna read through the document and then I'm gonna share my thoughts um, on that. Okay. So, yeah, let's get back to that. Okay. I think I have to go back up top. Just a second. It is. It says the United States belong to we the people. All government authorities derives from the consent of the people, and our nation's success derives from the character of its people. The American people's right to rule is an obverse of our duty. We cannot outsource to others our obligations to ensure the conditions that allow our families, local communities, churches, synagogues, and neighborhoods to thrive. The buck stops with us. So each of us must have the freedom to pursue the good for ourselves and those entrusted to our care. To most Americans, this is common sense, but in Washington, D.C., and other centers of leftist power, like the media and the academy, this statement of basic civics is branded hate speech. Progressive elites speak in lofty terms of openness, progress, expertise, cooperation, and globalization, but too often these terms are just rhetorical Trojan horses concealing their true intention, stripping we the people off of the Constitution authority over the country's future. America's corporate and political elites do not believe in the ideals in which the nation is dedicated: self governance, the rule of law, and order, liberty. They certainly do not trust the American people, and they disdain the Constitution's restriction on their ambitions. Instead, they believe in a kind of 21st century Wilsonian order in which the enlightened, highly educated managerial elites run things rather than the humble, patriotic working families who make up the majority of what the elites contemptuously called flyover country. This Wils, this Wilsonian hubris has spread like a cancer through many of the America's largest corporations, its public institutions, and its popular culture. Those who run over or run our so-called American corporations have bent to the will of the woke agenda and care more about their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers. Today, nearly every top tier U.S. university president or Wall hedge fund manager has more in common with a socialist European head of state than those with the parents at the high school football game in Waco, Texas. Many elites' entire it seems is wrapped up in their sense of superiority over those people. But under our Constitution, there are the mere equals of the workers who show after work, who shower after work. Let me see that again. But under our Constitution, they are the mere equals to the workers who shower after work instead of before. This is as it should be. Intellectual sophistication, advanced degrees, financial success, and all other markers of elite status have no bearing on the person's of one thing most necessary for governance: what it means to live well. That knowledge is available to each of us, no matter how humble our backgrounds or how unpretentious our attainments. It is it is open to us to read in the book of human nature, and we are all offered the key just by merit of our shared humanity. One of the great premises of American political life is that everyone who can read in that book must have a voice in deciding the course of the fate of our republic. Progressive policymakers and pundits of American either fail to understand this premise or intentionally reject it. They enthusiastically support supranational organizations like the United Nations and European Union, which are run and staffed almost entirely by people who share their values and are most insulted from the influence of national elections. That's why we are eager for America to sign international treaties on pharmaceutical patents to climate change to the rights of the child. and why those treaties invariably endorse policies that would never pass through the U.S. Congress. Like the progressive Woodrow Wilson a century ago, the woke left today seeks a world bound by global treaties they write, in which they exercise dictatorial powers over the nations without being subject to democratic accountability. The progressive left is so cavalierly supports open bound borders despite the lawless humanitarian crisis their policy created along America's southern border. They seek to purge the very concept of the nation state from the American ethos, no matter how much crime increases or resources drop for schools and hospitals or wages decrease for the working class. Open borders activism is a class example of what the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer called cheap grace, publicly promoting one's own virtue without risking any personal inconvenience. Indeed, the only direct impact of on open borders venience. Did I read that right? Okay, I'm gonna start again. Impact of open borders on pro open borders elites is that the constant flow of illegal immigration and busboys. Cheap grace aptly describes the left's love affair with environmental extremism. Those who suffer from the policies environmentalism would have us enact on the aged, poor, and vulnerable. It is not a political cause, but a pseudo religion meant to baptize ruthless pursuit of absolute power and the holy water of environmental virtue. At its very heart, extremism is decidedly anti-human. Stewardship stewardship and conservation are supplanted in population control and economic regression. Environmental idea. Just want to make sure I got that right. Environmental ideologues would ban the fuels that run most all of the world's cars, planes, factories, farms, and electricity grids, abandon confidence in human resilience and creativity in responding to the challenges of the future, most meaningful human activities. They would stand human affairs fundamentally a threat to be sacrificed to the God of nature. The same goals are the heart of elite support for economic globalization. For 30 years, Americans' political, economic, and cultural leaders embraced and enriched Communist China and its genocidal Communist Party while hollowing out America's industrial base. What have they what may have started out as good intentions has now been made clear. Unfettered trade with China has been a catastrophe. Profitable while twisting their business incentives away from the American people's needs. For a generation, politicians of both parties promised that engagement with Beijing would grow our economy while injecting American values into China. The opposite has happened. American factories have closed, jobs have been outsourced, our manufacturing economy has the corporations profiting failed to export our values of human rights and freedom. Rather, they imported China's anti American values into their C suites. Even before the rise of big tech property, it outright cheered the elimination of the American manufacturing jobs. It said, learn the code, they would gloat. That's in parentheses. These were just the price of progress. Engagement was at every step Beijing's project, not America's. The Chinese the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) dictated terms only to break them whenever it suited them. They stole our technology, dollars of wealth, and military power financed by their access to our markets. Then came the rise of big tech, which is now a less contributor to the US economy than it is a tool to China's government. In exchange for cheap labor and regulatory special treatment from Beijing, America's largest technology firms funnel data about Americans to the CCP. They hand over sensitive intellectual property with military and intelligence applications to keep the money rolling in. They let the CCP set their corporate policies about mobile devices in Washington. One side of this models is old-fashioned American innovation, but increasingly that side of these businesses is overshadowed by their role as operative in the lucrative enemy. Big tech and the CCP look no further than TikTok, the highly addictive video app used by 80 million Americans every month and overwhelmingly popular among teenage girls. It is, in effect, a tool of Chinese espionage. The ties between TikTok and the Chinese government are not loose, and they are not coincidental. The same can be observed of many U.S. colleges and universities. Through the CCP's Confucius Institutes, Beijing has just been a success. Excuse me. Through the CCP's Confucius Institutes, Beijing has been just as successful in compromising and cooperating our education system as they have been. Reader might take the last few pages as a surveying of president. Supranational policymakers, border security, globalization, and engagement with China, manufacturing, big tech, and Beijing compromised colleges. But these really are not many issues, but two. One, that China is a totalitarian enemy of the United States, not a strategic partner or fair competitor. And two, America's elites have solution to all of the above problems is not to tinker with this or that government program to replace this or that bureaucrat. These are problems not of the technocratic efficiency, but of national sovereignty and constitutional governance. We solve them by not by trimming and reshaping the leaves, but by ripping out the trees, root and branch. International organizations and agreements that erode our Constitution, rule of law, or popular sovereignty should not be formed. Instead, they should be mitigated, the border sealed, not reprioritized. Economic engagement with China should be ended, not rethought. Our manufacture our manufacturing and industrial base should be restored, not allowed to deteriorate further. Consumer propaganda and espionage should be outlawed, not merely monitored. Universities and eligibility for federal funds. The next conservative president interests, but not go on offense, asserting them around the world. America's vast reserves of oil and natural gases are not an environmental problem. They are the lifeblood of economic growth. American dominance of the global energy market would be a good thing for the world and for more importantly for we the people. It's not just about jobs. It's about even though unleashing domestic energy production would create millions of them. It's not just about higher wages for workers who didn't go on for 2 generations. Full spectrum strategic energy dominance will facilitate the reinvigoration of America's entire industry and manufacturing sector as we disentangle our economy from China. Globally, it would rebalance power away from the dangerous regimes in Russia and the Middle East. It would build powerful alliances with fast growing nations in Africa and provide us with the leverage to counter Chinese ambitions in South America and the Pacific. Locally, it would drive billions of dollars to private investments to dissuade future foreign meddling to the communities that have been hammered by globalization since the 1990s. And it would clarify our intentions to Beijing that the next president can ensure that the larger part of America's reindustrialization is the production of the equipment we need to dissuade future foreign meddling in with U.S. vital interests. Was definitely different from Who Wrote Promise number two. Not a tongue twister. Promise number three is a tongue. They made it a lot more of a tongue twister. That is for sure. Now, but they also made it kind of difficult to understand. Understand if you listen to me read this and listen to me get through the tongue ties and still don't understand what they're trying to say. Okay. They want to close the borders. They don't want anybody else to come in, even though they want us to not enough. We have enough people here that, and in doing so, we don't want them to no longer have the Confucius Institutes, which are in a lot of colleges. I know even in Montgomery, Alabama, because I went to a historically black college, University of Montgomery, and they had a Confucius um, institute there where Chinese and students who were studying abroad and abroad would be here. They would come over here and they would take up class, and they would be here on a, I think it's an education visa, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and actually, one of my roommates at the time, um, she came here and she went to college here. She graduated here. She eventually got a job at the Confucius Institute. And basically, from what I gathered and what I saw, is that when the Chinese people come over, and it's probably not just Chinese, I'm sure it's not. When they come over, a lot of times they don't speak English at all or not well, and so the Confucius Institute, what to do is they tend to help them put their classes together. They tend to help them learn English. It also is a sense of home where they're able to get with other people who them speak the language that they speak. So it's like a social setting as well. And then they keep up with, traditions and things that they normally would do at home. So it's a sense of home away from home in a sense, but they also help one another with, like I said, scheduling of classes, with their curriculums, so and just other ways as well, right? Um, I will say this: I do not believe that my older roommate had any interest in trying to steal anybody's information or in any way trying to commit treason or um, with against this country. I can honestly say that. Um, Let me go back to here. Um, she she was here because she was taught that she could have a better life. It's the American dream. It's the reason why so many, yeah, it wasn't called the American dream at that point, right? But they came over here looking for something better, looking for more than where they came from. I don't think that has changed for most people. Most people see America as the land of opportunity, and so therefore they come, or they're fleeing from third world country, or from things that may be happening over in their countries where there may be a dictatorship or maybe a totalitarian type of government. situation. And so they come over here because they hear about the democracy, they hear about the money, they hear about the wealth. As Americans, we're always showing ourselves to other countries as this major rich country that has it all, that has all the opportunities in the world. And so, it's like showing a monkey a piece of gold or something shiny, like they like shiny objects. So of course they're attracted to that shiny object. They want to see what that's about. Um, so they try their best to get it, which is why so many other immigrants, and I say other immigrants because initially, if you're not native to this land, you're an immigrant. I mean, when I mean native to this land, like if your people wasn't originally here before the Mayflower, you're from you're an immigrant. You're a descendant of immigrants. Okay. Um, I think a lot of people forget that you're a descendant of immigrants, and the only reason that we're able to call this our country is because it was taken, it was stripped. And I get it; it's the art of war. May the best man win. I get all that. However, we have to be honest with ourselves. So they're also saying that they want to close the borders because they are basically saying that the jobs that are here, what's left of what's here, because they're saying that most of it is outsourced to other countries, which is true. A lot of it is outsourced to other countries. But this is my thing. The people that are putting this in place, the football coach or the football team player's mother or father, these are people with money. Some of these people own corporations. Some of these people are the exact elite that they're referring to. So it's kind of a projection in a sense, because it's like, how are you calling these people selfish, and things of that nature, and not looking out for the American people, yet you sit in the seats with them, next to them, and you're trying to, in a sense, you're trying to, what is the word that I'm looking for? You're trying to basically create that rapport with the working class, the working middle class, but you're not working middle class. So it's easy to put down some words, right? And try to, make it seem like you understand, to empathize, right? To try to empathize with the middle class, or with the working middle class, when you're not a part of that working middle class. So you're inevitably trying to tell us how we should think, what we should do, but you don't live in our class system. You would never come over to our houses. You would never eat at our tables. We would never eat at your tables because you wouldn't invite us. So it's kind of like what we in the South say is, you're speaking it down to the so-called elites, and maybe they have more money than, or the elites you're referring to may have more money than you. But let's be clear. Um, the next conservative president, if he were to get into office, happens to be the former president who owns multiple corporations. He is what people would consider one of the elites. So, inevitably, the person who wrote this section on promise number 3 is inevitably talking about the very person that they're trying to put in office. So, it's kind of contradictory, in my opinion. Now, that's my opinion. You do not have to agree with my opinion, and I would love to hear your opinion, whether you agree or not, in the comment section. We're not going to leave this long. This wasn't a long section. It really said a lot, but not much at all. I know that sounds crazy, but what I mean by that, it was kind of wordy, but it really didn't say that much. Now, I do laugh at the fact, that once again the females have to take the blame for the CCP getting information, and the TikTok. That was actually kind of funny. Um, it seems as if in this section, they really, well, maybe it's because, it's an Asian product, because it's a Chinese product. Maybe that's, maybe that was they're just supporting details. But because that is an Asian product. But I don't see anybody saying anything about Timu. Timu, that's China too. And many of these corporations and things that they're talking about, they're ordering it off. They're ordering their stuff off Timu. That's Chinese. You give them your address. You give them your credit card information. You give them your name, your number, your email. So I don't see how that information or giving them that information from buying products, right, is any different from TikTok. They get the same information, the exact same information. So what's the difference? If they're going to get the information, they're going to get the information. However, it's kind of hard to be like, well, this is the land of the free, built on the backs of immigrants, right? And then say, but not those immigrants. Those immigrants are not welcome. These immigrants are, but those aren't. And then all of a sudden, we want to work with Africa. Interesting, considering that so much has been taken from Africa. So much has been taken from Africa. And there's a lot of American elites, if you will, who have interest in African countries and actually have companies that run in or set up in certain African countries because the laws are different. So it's not something already doing, and we're not going to pretend that these elites um, that are pretending to be everyday middle class Americans do not have businesses and workers and factories and farmers and all sorts of things that gets shipped over here to America that comes from over there. Same thing for Europe. Look, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the consumerism portion of it, China just did it better. You have to give credit where credit's due. They just did it better. Now, had we from the beginning said, you know what, we're going to keep everything within the United States and we're going to basically employ our people to do all this labor so that we can keep the economy thriving, how do you do that when most of your supplies come from China? Like I say, doesn't matter what you look at, doesn't matter what, like you can look at the tags on your clothing, you can look at the tags on your merchandise that you buy from the store. It pretty much all says made in China. Every now and then you'll get a made in Taiwan. But for the most part, everything that we have is made in China. So my thing is, who is going to do these jobs? I know some people are going to sign up. Don't get me wrong. Yes, but if you cut off trade with China as a whole, first off they're gonna be pissed, and they're gonna be pissed because we owe them money. And the same way we get pissed when people owe us money, they're gonna be pissed. So if we stop all the manufacturing or stop all the trade and we manufacture here within the country, where are we gonna get all of these supplies? Where are we gonna get all these materials? How can we honestly cut China off indefinitely? How long would that take? Or would we have to literally go and try to take something? Again, these are questions and concerns that I have. I don't have the answers. I don't have the solutions. It just what do we do? If anybody can answer these questions, I'm more than welcome to read your comments in the comment section. So I'm going to encourage you, if you have solutions, real solutions, not just some rhetoric or not something that's just being regurgitated over and over again. I don't want to hear no sayings. Don't give me a George Bush, just get back up on the horse and ride it type statement, okay? Real solutions. Where are we going to get these materials? Who's going to be employed to do all these things? Where are we going to put these factories? How much is it going to cost us? If you can answer some of these questions, I'd love to read it. All right, those are my thoughts. Um, in the entire situation. Okay, those are my thoughts. I hope you did are enjoying the content. Hope that it is getting, just opening up and helping you to understand a little bit about Project 2025 and what this mandate is trying to propose, and what's on the table. Okay. Some of these things are already being implemented. We have already seen, like, the overturning of Roe versus Wade. We have already seen some other things also going into effect with anti-LGBTQIA laws, as well as uh, some anti-transgender laws and things like that that's already being put on the table, and then also some other things as well. Um, the crumbling of the education system. I mean, some of these things. This is not something that's just, for the future. This is also this is kind of already direction in which they're trying to take it, the full direction. So, anyways, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's kind of late, y'all, so I'm a little tired, but make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also leave a comment and let us know that you dropped by. Like the video out, get this content out. Everyone needs to know before they go and vote this November. Everyone needs to know about what they're signing up for, and what all that entails. Everyone needs to know, and at least just have a little bit of knowledge. And since a lot of people said that they did not either did not want to read the 992 pages or could not read for whatever reason, here we are. We're breaking it down piece by piece, and discussing our way through it. I mean, that's all we can do. So again, we can have a better understanding, so that when November gets here, we know what we're looking at, we know what we're dealing with, and we can hopefully make an educated guess. This is a presidential race, but that's not the only people that we're voting for. We're also voting to put other people in places as well. And so we need to be as knowledgeable as possible. If you have not registered to vote, make sure you go do that. Make sure you also check and make sure that you know where you're supposed to be going to as far as where your poll is. If you're going to mail in your ballot, that's great. That's another option for you. If you're going to end up at a church or a school or anywhere else that may be open to the public, just make sure that that's actually your poll that you're supposed to be at, because you don't want to get there the day of and find out you're in the wrong spot. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that. If you are on Facebook, thank you so much again for tuning in as well. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you put your comments in the comment section so I can get back to those, and also share this content out as well, so we can try to get it as far across as possible. Like I said, all your opinions do not have to coincide with mine. I have nothing against the difference of opinion, but just make it make sense. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for tuning into another video, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.